Here's our tester checking the chassis number, the VIN number, the frame number, whatever you like. Important to get all the details here as part of the pre-MOT test to make sure everything's as it should be. Now in this short video we're going to go through all the key stages of a motorcycle test. For example, here's the tester checking the steering, headstock, security of the handlebars, etc. But this is not going to be done in real time. We expect a real test to take about half an hour depending on the age and condition of the bike. So here we go. Now we're checking brakes putting on in order to check the suspension movement and check the damper condition and all the usual things that are going on here. Now he's removing the fuel cap, and again this is kind of part of the pre-test but just double checking. Secure that back in position. Okay, put it onto the main stand now. Start looking at the condition of the bike in more details from here onwards. So we're just going to jack it up now to check first of all the condition of the front wheel bearings, security and so on, and of course we'll be checking the brakes and things like that in the process. Just putting a piece of cloth on the jack here just to prevent damage to anything underneath the bike, and this will depend on normal jacking up procedures of course. Okay, there we go. So it's just far enough to get the front wheel off the ground. It makes it much easier obviously for rotating the wheel, and again we're just sort of checking steering movement at this point. Okay, rotate the wheel now, check the general feel of it, check for the brakes binding. And interestingly, when we were doing this test, the brake felt to be just binding ever so slightly, but later on, as you'll see when we put it on the rollers, it turned out to be fine. Get a torch out obviously where necessary. So we're checking condition of the wheel, condition of the tyre, checking that the right type of tyres are on it, if they're directional tyres, that they're fitted in the correct direction, and so on. Checking brake caliper condition, brake disc condition, brake pads, brake hoses, brake pipes, all the usual things that are important as part of the test. As always, refer back to the MOT tester's manual for the details of these things. Particularly good check of the condition of the disc here, looking for cracks. Now moving the wheel top to bottom in this position to check for wheel bearing condition. Final check all the way around the tyre, and again refer to the manual for full details of the tyre condition.
I'll edit that out.
Clearly we're looking for bulge, damage, tread condition, the usual things. Tread depth gauge now to check the tyre, and checking it in a number of different positions is the normal procedure as well. Okay, general security here of the suspension, dampers, springs. Checked it earlier on with the suspension loaded up, and then of course another check with the suspension unloaded allows you to be very thorough. Okay, here goes the turn plate, so we can drop the bike back down now onto the turn plate for further checks of the steering. Centralise it on the turn plate. I'm just going to move the steering from lock to lock.
Okay.
Checking for smooth movement here. And of course often the wear takes place very close to the centre line, because under normal circumstances of course the steering doesn't move very much at all. Okay, put the turn plate out of the way and we're ready to move on to the next stage. So here we're checking condition around the engine, security of course, security in the frame, security of the brake pedal, the footrests, anything connected to the frame, suspension, exhaust pipe of course. Just generally working your way around the vehicle in a set routine to make sure everything is in order. So just putting the lights on at this stage, checking general condition, checking the brake light, checking the rear lights. In this particular place we've got mirrors on the wall, so it was easy to check the lights in that way. Again, you can see the tester's using a torch here for obvious reasons. It just makes sure you can see properly into all the corners, and checking everything for security and general condition. This bike's not that old, so we're not expecting to find anything unusual with it, but it's the process that matters. So again, moving the wheel side to side there, quick check on bearings, but we'll probably look at that in more detail a little bit later on. So spinning the wheel now, checking general condition. Just operate the brake pedal to check that it's not binding. Obviously this would again show up when we do the roller test a little bit later on. Okay, so moving around to the other side, again checking general security of the different components on the bike. Number plate security, license plate security, and the lights and so on all seem to be in good condition here. So we're just following around the other side now, so he's again checking suspension components, springs, dampers, looking for leaks, looking for cracks, ensuring everything is secure as it should be. Checking the condition of the chain here, often an area that's not looked after. And again, just using the torch to look for security of the bolts, the securing bolts that hold the suspension components on. Now we're checking the condition of the wheel, the valve, looking for cracks in the condition of the wheel. Careful rotation round now, looking for the tyre. Again, if it's directional, as I think most are of course, but just making sure everything's okay, and the tyre condition as you go around. Once again, tread depth gauge in a couple of different positions to make sure everything's as it should be. Refer to the manual of course for the latest settings on what tread depth should be. Rear footrest condition, front footrest, gear change, stand, side stand and the main stand, just checking for security. And the fact that the side stand on its spring stows away properly. Dropping it off the main stand now. And that's it, that's the general kind of check around the bike for overall condition. Just checking the rear suspension and the rear dampers. Now we're in the process of checking wheel alignment. Now, wheel alignment can be out in a number of different ways, as will be covered in other parts of this program, but in very simple terms of course the front wheel and the back wheel should line up exactly. So we put in the alignment checking poles in position, so it's just setting them equally and exactly against the rear wheel, and of course if everything's aligned correctly, just looking down from the side now to see how much distance there is to either the left side or the right side of the front wheel, and in this case it looks pretty good. And that's it, that's the wheel alignment checked. As you can see, we've got an assistant helping us here who does look a bit bored, but it's an important job. That's it, and we put the alignment bars away. Headlight test next. So first of all we've checked the height of the headlamp using the marker board there, and we put the beam setter in position now. The beam setter's on rails, so we've ensured already that the bike is at 90 degrees to the rails. So here the tester's just looking through to get the thing lined up exactly with the centre line of the headlamp. for obvious reasons. Close the flap at the front now, and we'll just go through the main beam and dip beam and check their positions. Again, refer to the normal regulations about what the settings should be on here. Most bikes that we check here are going to have the European pattern, and the settings have changed recently, so double check the distances on there. Okay, that's the lights done. We're going to move on to now checking the brakes on the brake rollers. So the tester gets on the bike here, puts the stand out of the way of course, and we're going to do the front wheel first, so we just drop that into the rollers, making sure the bike is square. And he has a remote control in his hand, so he can set the rollers going. There they go. Just making sure it stays centralised. He's applying the brake. And when we've watched this clip, we'll look at what's happening on the gauges, so you can see how the pressure's increased gradually. So front wheel done, so now drop the back wheel into the rollers and set the controls running again. Again, of course, he's going to apply the foot brake now, gradually, looking for binding, looking for grabbing, and ensuring that it's coming on smoothly, and whether or not it locks. In most cases, this bike did lock. Okay, and here's the display that we were watching while the brake test was going on, so I'll zero it out first of all. Okay, and you can see on the left-hand side the numbers increasing gradually and not fluctuating. If you look at the gauge at the top right-hand corner, just increasing nicely, and we get to a point where this is going to lock out. There we go. So very efficient. Okay, we've moved forward, drop the rear wheel into the rollers. I'll repeat the whole thing again now. So again, you can see that the thing is increasing gradually, letting it back off, it's not binding. Now take it right up into the locked position. Bang, there we go. Okay, as normal you'd expect greater braking force on the front wheel of the bike, and everything was in order here. So we drop it back out of the rollers, back down the workshop, put it on the stand. You can see our tester's got his checklist there, so he's been making a note of things as we've been going along. And of course, all done now, back to the MOT system to log results. That's it.